Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar, How to Target Your Most Important Off-the-Grid Audiences. My name is Shayna Glenzer, and I am with Crowdskout, and I am your host today. About to hand you over to today's moderator, but before we begin, just wanted to point out that there's a Q&A box in your webinar where you can feel free to ask questions throughout. And also we'll be recording this and sharing some thoughts in a blog and the recording afterwards for those of you who are interested, and therefore you don't have to take lots of notes and kind of scribble things down throughout. So just sit back, enjoy. And with that, I am going to hand it over to today's moderator. Well, I'll start with the agenda really quickly. We are going to hand it over to Lucy in a second to set the stage for you, talk a little bit about why it's important. Why it's important to think about targeting off-the-grid audiences and why this is a challenge for some folks in their community outreach. Then we'll hear a little about the Strive Prep story from Lindsay, Anna, and David. And Lucy will share some thoughts on and cues when you're thinking off the grid and how to start thinking about targeting people that may not be easily identifiable by other mechanisms like photo files and outreach that you're already conducting. And then we'll open it up to discussion. So let me go ahead and hand it over to our moderator today, Lucy.
Hey guys, this is Lucy Caldwell. I'm Crowdskout's Chief Strategy Officer, and I am super excited about today's webinar. This is a topic that I've been wanting to put together for a long time. So thanks to our team for giving us the great chance to come together to chat about this today. So I want to start by kind of setting the stage. And this is, having Strive is really special to us because I actually used to do a lot of work that is very similar to the work that the folks at Strive do, because I worked a lot with charter schools. And actually, Crowdscout has a lot of customers, surprisingly, that are charter schools. And I actually shouldn't say surprising, because it's not surprising, because charter schools are really interesting in the kind of unique challenges that they face. One of the things that I've always thought is really interesting about groups in that kind of subset of public policy folks doing education reform, but charter schools more specifically, is that they really have a multifaceted agenda with multiple discrete target audiences. So, you have families, first of all, many of whom are very underserved by the resources that are available to them, but don't really know what's out there. So you have to find those people. There's also the challenge that charter schools are constantly the subject of ongoing legislation, whether it's, finding more ways to make facilities available or raise caps or get more families involved, or, the kind of ongoing push for funding that all folks in the education space are constantly experiencing. So there's this sort of weird moment that I think a lot of charter schools find themselves in, where they sort of have to market to many discrete audiences. And there's sort of a moment where I think a lot of charter schools and other groups in public policy space like this find that they kind of have to be all things to all people, right? So, their brand has to be kind of warm and fuzzy to families, and, like, this is going to be a wonderful environment for your children. It has to be strong and effective to donors. Please support us. We need your help. And also, dynamic to lawmakers and other public policy makers. So I think that guide path piece is a really interesting part of it as well. So with that, I'll go ahead and introduce our speakers today. We're super lucky to have three great speakers, two of whom are coming to us from Strive and one from 270, another great agency that we're grateful to work with a lot. So the first speaker I want to introduce is Anna. Anna is the Senior Director of Family Engagement and Advocacy for Strive. And she's joined by her colleague, Lindsay, who is Strive's Marketing Manager. And then finally, we also have David on the line. David is a project manager at 270. If you don't know 270, check them out. They're a very cool firm, came out of the Obama days, I believe, and have a lot of really dynamic, super smart people. So we always love seeing what they're doing. They're doing really innovative work. So with that, Strive Gals, I'll turn it over to you to give us a little bit of a sense of kind of framing out how you guys approach this particular challenge for your particular space.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm Lindsay, by the way, just so you can kind of differentiate our voices, and I'm here with Anna. We've both been with the organization about 3 years, and we both came from really different backgrounds. Mine was actually much more based in journalism and traditional PR, and I moved into, a marketing role where we have really diverse audiences here, and had to, really think through a lot of ways to engage these audiences that maybe aren't the traditional model. So I'm really excited to talk about that with you guys today.
And then I'm Anna. Hi, everybody. My background is a little bit different from Lindsay. I originally joined Strive Prep as a teacher and then moved to a role at our central office that supports our 11 schools. I found that my favorite parts of teaching were usually when I was working with families outside of the classroom. So I've been spending the last few years kind of diving deep into a family engagement program that we have called Strive Together that we're going to go through a little bit more in detail today. But Lindsay is going to start us off by talking about our audiences that we have at Strive Prep.
Awesome. So we have, as I said, really diverse groups of audiences. As a charter network, we are a public school, and we do operate within the District of Denver Public Schools, just to give you guys a bit of background. But that's truly where a lot of the differences start to stem out. So we have our current families. We currently are serving 3,500 students across 11 schools in Denver. And then we also recruit prospective families for each new school year. And we have a current audience of teachers of about 500 teachers around the network, and we recruit for anywhere upwards of 100 new roles a year. And then we also have a really diverse list of both community partners who support work within our schools and supporters and donors who give us in-kind gifts, go out and spread the good word about us. So as you can see, we have a lot of really different audiences and a lot of different ways that we engage them because they, need different things out of their relationship with us.
So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about that program that I mentioned, which is our family engagement model called Strive Together. We were founded in 2006, but in about 2015, we realized that we weren't doing a great job engaging our current families and that families wanted to be involved, but we weren't necessarily providing a lot of opportunities, which was really a big missed opportunity since we have at any point 3,500 students and families who are supportive of our brand and supportive of our cause, but we just hadn't done an effective way of engaging them. So we thought about creating an internal family engagement program, but we wanted to not just start out big and have a program with 3,500 people and have it go wrong and learn from our mistakes that way. So we wanted to start small. So we started with a few different pilots, testing out what our families really invested in and what do they want to learn and know about. So we tested our 2 pilots with about 30 families over the course of 1 year and really found that families are most invested, surprisingly, when they are learning about their own students. And so we developed some goals with families around academics, attendance, and advocacy, and decided to scale that out to all of our 11 schools. And so we build the program 1 year at a time and focus on grade level specific goals, and currently have it at all 11 of our schools, engaging over 1,000 families. So how the program works, we bring families together at the beginning of the year and we use a text message platform called Hustle. We cast the net as broad as we possibly can and invite families to come to the program through text message. I'll talk a little bit more later about what we learned through the pilot and what we learned through the current implementation, but Hustle has been our main source of communication for our current families and stakeholders. So we bring families together to a meeting and we set year-long goals together with families. We found that when goals are collaborative, they're much more engaged. And then we actually text families every single week around the goals that they set for their student. So for example, we might set a goal around attendance with a family. They might say, my student is going to be absent no more than 5 days this year. And then we will actually text that family using Hustle every single week towards the progress of those goals. As we are bringing families together for meetings, we're also identifying leaders and seeing who's more involved. We're identifying leaders through the text message communication that we have too. And then ultimately we are rolling all of that information up into Crowdscout to track participation. And it's been really helpful to have our participation tracked historically over the course of the past few years. Because with such a large audience and such a large engagement rate, it's really nice to have that record of what families at what campuses and what grade levels are most involved, and we really leverage Crowdscout for that. Another key piece of the work that we do, like Lindsay said, one of our audiences is Prospective Families, and every year there are about 7,000 to 8,000 families who we are communicating with and trying to spread the good word of Strive Prep and let them know that our school is an option for their student to attend, and we've really leveraged Crowdscout through that. And I would say with our family engagement team, that's one of the main ways that we collaborate with our marketing team in order to track data and make sure that we're reaching out to people in the most effective of ways.
So in addition to that, we use a lot of the same strategies, but the implementation and execution is really different. When we're talking to prospective teachers, we love utilizing general interest forms and then kind of using that as the basis for how we tag our teachers. We have a network of about 95% minority students, so it's really important to us to recruit Spanish-speaking teachers because they can communicate with families easier that way. So that's, one thing that we can build automatically in as a tag if they come to our website and fill out our general interest form. So the questions, are really targeted and can span from anything from what content area you're interested in, what grade level are you interested in, and what languages can you speak. And then when we have a role we're looking to fill, we can dip into our Crowdscout database and really easily find some of these people who, this person speaks Spanish and they want to teach middle school and they also have experience teaching science. And it's just really quick and streamlined. And then, it makes it easier for our recruiters to just be able to reach out to people through targeted emails that way, rather than, sending a blast every time they have a position they need filled. And then another thing we've loved being able to do is utilize those Crowdscout codes that then get created. And we partner those with social media paid ad campaigns to, continue planting the seed of Strive Prep in their mind. So it's maybe not always reaching out to them about a job, but if we have a blog post we just wrote about a teacher who's really going above and beyond, then we can promote that post on Facebook and specifically target it to those people's Crowdscout codes so that the next time they log in on social media, it's likely something that's going to come up in their news feed. And then with our partners and supporters, we also have really loved utilizing the tagging. We have, a base list of about 3,000 supporters who either have made a gift to us, attended one of our events, or supported us in some way over the past 13 years. And what we were realizing was that their engagement was really dropping in the past few years as we've grown, because we have so much information to push out that it's overwhelming them. So what we've really tried to do in the past couple of years is scale back, figure out what these people particularly are interested in supporting at Strive, because they may have a really close tie to science education or elementary education. And so then we can really target them when we're making donation asks or we have a good news story to share, so that they aren't getting everything, but they're getting regular stories about Strive Prep that are also connected to what they're interested in.
So as we started to look through the last few years of Strive Together in our history of family engagement, we had many takeaways and many learnings. But in summary, one of our first was that families really do want to be involved, and they're asking to be involved, but it's necessary for us to kind of show them the way. And also that this involvement looks different for every family and that this looks different for every person. And then another key takeaway for us is that our communication between all of our families whether they are prospective or are current, but primarily are current, is that the communication needs to be a two-way street. Traditionally in education, there's a lot of communication coming from the school, just dumping it on families. And we've really learned that it's important to let families know that we want their communication and response just as much, but also that it's really important to let people know that that's what you want. So we've learned a lot by showing people examples of us communicating to them through Hustle, and then what a great example of a response is or a question that they might have, and really showing them that we want it to be a two-way street. And we found that involving families really as a true collaborator in their students' education, and that two-way communication has really had us get some incredible results. We've increased our family engagement participation from 10% to 40% in this program, really just by involving people within the decisions that they're interested in. So why family engagement? Obviously in education, this looks a little bit different than how it looks in other sectors. But what we have really found that is when a student is most successful is when there's authentic collaboration between their family, whether that's their parent or their grandparent, whoever is the leader in that household. So the family, our school, and the student, whenever everybody is on the same page and they're working towards a collective goal and everybody knows their role within that goal, they are able to be most successful. We found that students are also most successful when families have a say in setting these goals, which is a little bit different and is a little bit untraditional, but thinking about how are we just not talking at families and how are they setting goals for their students. And then another thing about this program is that Strive Prep is really tailored to our company. It is really tailored to what we had in mind. It's designed for us. And it's designed around systems and structures in our schools that were already put in place. So when we are communicating resources to families, those are things that already exist within our schools, and we're not just reinventing the wheel.
Awesome. That's great. This is Lucy again. I think this has been really useful for folks already, and we actually already even have some people clamoring with questions, but I kind of wanted to chime in here and then get David's involvement. You know, I think you're really highlighting some things in relating the experience of your pilot that are really important. One is really identifying who those personas are. You know, it seems really useful that you've approached this in a way that you're really thinking about those groups differently. You know, how do parents want to consume content from you? What are their end goals versus folks who are just general supporters of you? Where are they coming from? I think also, I think that, you know, you touched on a couple of things, including the fact that, you know, 95% of your audience come from minority backgrounds, people who are often underserved. And it sounds like, you know, you're doing a lot of stuff to outreach to those people in unique ways, whether it's through the direct peer-to-peer texting that you were talking about with Hustle, who's a great partner of ours, or, you know, generally finding ways to identify them in their community. We've seen a lot of folks who have similar use cases to yours do really amazing things like employ lookalike modeling to say, okay, you know, I know that I have an underserved community, and, you know, I don't have the natural sort of like mechanisms by which someone like just, you know, says, what's my neighborhood school, right? What if they type that in, what's going to come in is not Strive, right? It's going to be their traditional public school. So you have that hump to get over to figure out how to find those people who will be well served for you. So we've seen a lot of folks do great stuff, and it sounds like you're doing a lot of it as well, to employ lookalike modeling to say, okay, this is my community of, you know, 1,000 parents right now, and I'm going to take this, whether it's to, you know, a social ad platform or to a direct mail vendor or whatever, and I'm going to go find people who look demographically like that audience. So, but I thought a lot of how you know, I think a lot about how folks doing the work you do identify community hubs. But what was really interesting to me about what you said is that you're really going beyond just like the traditional you know, brick and mortar hub that we think of that bring people together community-wise. So you're going beyond, say, a community center or an after-school program, and you're thinking about that relationship that they have with you in their text inbox, so to speak, as the hub in and of itself. So that was really, really cool. And I really thank you guys for sharing that experience with us. So I think we're going to hop into some quick discussion, and I want to bring David's voice into this to hear a little bit about the work that 270 has done with Strive and kind of generally how you guys approach some of this work. And then as we wind down after we do that, we'll do that for 5 to 10 minutes or so. And then I want to make sure we get to some of these questions that we have, and Anna and Lindsay, get ready, because a lot of them are pretty specific for folks who want to learn from your experience. So David, I'll kick it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucy. Something that I think really struck out with Anna's mention regarding creating a tailored program for Strive is that really taking a look and understanding what family engagement means specifically for Strive. And so just because there are best practices, for example, learned as a result of the pilot and as a result of this current engagement program that they're running, there are learnings that can be applied for other family engagement programs in other schools. But it's really about understanding who your audiences are and really understanding who those personas are. And so I think coming at it from that approach, one, is really important. Two, I think understanding what the research says and how it's clear about what it means to run a family engagement program, or what it means to actually authentically engage families in schools, is important. So research is clear, for example, how when families set high academic expectations and they openly discuss aspirations for the future, it really does foster greater accountability and learning. And so as a result, schools need to be at the forefront of this and really recognize that there are other forms of family engagement outside of potlucks, outside of PTA meetings, outside of bake sales or what have you, or volunteer opportunities. And so going back to Anna's point as to what the pilot looked like and then how they scaled, really understanding that goal setting is important, regular personalized communication is important, weekly data sharing with parents from teachers and school administrators is important, home visits, all of that translates as to authentic family engagement that's tailored to the school of your choice and to your audiences. And so really going through that lens I think is pretty important. And as a result, understanding what that approach looks like, and then to what the research says, you can build a model that is really customized to fit your schools and your parents' needs, more importantly. So I think that's something that they've done really well. We partnered here at 270 with Strive in 2015 to help with the pilot design, and then helping with scaling and implementing in the 2016-2017 academic year. And so we've been lucky to work with Anna and the Strive Prep team to really see the growth of this program going from pilot design to full-on implementation and scaling to multiple schools across their charter program.
Cool. When you guys, it's the question from both of you, as you guys started to build out this kind of, I mean, for lack of a better word, really a data-driven marketing operation to this audience of families, what were some things, if any, that really surprised you as you went through that pilot process? That's for all of you.
I think one thing that surprised us was making sure that we had everything completely rooted in definitions and really scaling things back and kind of stripping away the layers of a lot of things. I think when you work in education, you have a lot of fancy buzzwords and you have a lot of things that you and your colleagues are really used to saying, but we wanted to make sure that we were breaking things down as clear as possible for families. And even then we found that we needed to simplify things because this might be our world and this might be what we're really fired up about, but they have lots of different competing priorities too. And so it's also important to root this in their child and root this kind of in a bigger cause. So why is attendance important for their student? Obviously this year, but where is it going to, bring their student in 5 years or 10 years? And how does that actually have a greater impact to not only themselves, but to their community?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think two things stuck out for me. One, at the end of the day, is this is about relationship building, right? And so making sure that you are building those types of authentic relationships with parents, between the schools and the parents, I think is important. And as a result, applying organizing best practices, both online and offline, are just going to be really beneficial for your program and more importantly to fit and meet the parents and students' needs. And so it was really nice, at least on the 270 side, seeing just how Strive Prep just really ran with this and really took to heart an organizer's lens for building a program such as this. And then I think the second thing is just the type of tactics that they were using to communicate were at the forefront of personalized communication. And so Anna brought up Hustle and really engaging parents through that way and through that SMS mediums. At the time, Hustle, I think, was just beginning and starting out as a personalized SMS peer-to-peer platform. And so really leveraging that as a tool and really seeing the response from the audiences and from the parents, I think was really surprising in terms of like how receptive they were to what Strive Prep was communicating.
That's a great entree into a question that one of our attendees, Todd, asked. He asked, what or how are you IDing leaders over text?
Yeah, I can take that one. So I think one thing that we found, which was really effective, was a tiered level of asks for our leaders. So instead of a family maybe identifying that they wanted to be a leader and then us saying, great, you're a leader, now you're in charge of this, we took a different approach and we started much smaller. So one strategy that we have used and we have found to be really effective is that after a meeting, we send a text message to all of the families who participated, and just like a general text message of like, thanks for coming to the meeting last night. We have a leadership opportunity available. Let me know if you're interested. So some families might respond to that and they might say, yep, I want to go to this leadership training, or I'm super interested, and you can identify a leader that way. But then I'll also say that a lot of people don't identify as leaders themselves, even though they are, and you have to kind of pull it out of them. So you might want to text a family and say, hey, thanks for coming to the meeting last night, and you had a lot of really good questions, or you seemed really invested. Would you be interested in meeting for a one-on-one? And then through that engagement, you can kind of decide, is that person ready to go down one track or another? But usually just like asking people has been really effective.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
The only thing I'd add to that is being really intentional as to what exactly you want to engage parents around in your pilot design phase. And so Strive Prep really understood that you could engage parents through academics and use that as what we're calling an engagement on-ramp. And right, so you were building for academic meetings and prepping for that, using those meetings to set goals, following up and communicating via text and additional meetings to review progress to academic goals, assessing, debriefing with parents, and then evaluating those results. Just really using academics as a way to just continually engage parents, and using that as your frame of reference, I think, was really important.
Cool, that's interesting. I think kind of related to this, we have another question about what does a general interest form look like when you guys are beginning to move people through that funnel of engagement? That might be a good question for the Strive gals to take.
Yeah, so obviously a general interest form is something that is going to look different depending on what kind of audience you are trying to engage. You want the questions to be targeted, and you want it to be quick and easy to fill out. The example I was speaking of earlier was when we are recruiting new teachers. Issue we were finding was we get an influx of applications in like December and January when, people are making decisions about the end of the school year and what they want to do. But we wouldn't be getting applications throughout the year. And, things come up. There's sometimes roles you need to fill in the middle of the year. Sometimes it's closer to May and we need to fill a role. So by implementing this, we were able to get information from a lot of people who were interested in working for us and continue to engage them through, the spring. And not necessarily just telling them about jobs, but being able to engage them through email campaigns because we had their contact info, but then we had also identified, potential jobs that they could teach based on what they had put on the form. So for example, the fields on that form, I believe, are your name, your email, where you currently live, what you're interested in teaching, what grade level you're interested in teaching, whether or not you speak Spanish. And what we found is that we can use that as our general mailing list for, recruitment communications. And that's not, always just sending out a list of open jobs for us, but it's, sending out stories of what it is like to teach at Strive Prep and what, our commitment to learning and what our academic model looks like in really easy, digestible chunks every few weeks. And then when we have a position ready, we can, take that targeting even farther and filter those people by, okay, we're looking for a special education teacher for our high school who speaks Spanish. And, Crowdscout has made it so easy for us to be able to really target those people based off what they've already told us about themselves.
How often, sorry, did I cut someone off?
Nope.
How often do you guys find yourself building audiences of people with any of these sort of various personas that you're targeting that are based on a range of kind of disparate data points? Are you often pulling audiences of people that are like someone who responded to me over text at this time who also has XYZ characteristic? Or, how kind of, how much do you feel like you do or don't have a need for integrating those disparate outreach mechanisms?
I think it varies across each of our different audiences for families. I know sometimes we can have planned actions and things that we know on our radar for a long time that are coming up where we would need to sort and filter and find people who have been engaged who we think might come to an event. But other times in education, something might pop up quickly. So I would say with our families, we probably are sorting and filtering maybe on a weekly basis, but having an actionable item maybe monthly around it.
And I
Cool.
would say that
Go ahead.
with our other 3 to 4 audiences. Our donors are busy people. Like, they don't necessarily want to hear from us every single day. So we try to scale it back a little more with them, while at the still time keeping them engaged. So they, will always get at least one communication a month, but it's not always, hey, please donate to this, because that, doesn't work. You need to continue to court your audience. So it's maybe just something as quick and punchy as look what our 8th graders learned this week. Like, thanks to gifts like yours, we're able to provide models for them to dissect in their science class. Like, we appreciate you. And then, lower down in the email, maybe there's a CTA related to making a gift. But it's really, I think, just making us seem more personable to these audiences and, sharing our story out, not just telling them, hey, we need money so we can do this. It's showing them that as a result of your gifts, and if you continue to give more, we're giving our students better opportunities in these schools, and that's a direct result of your impact.
That's awesome to hear, because we just posted a blog on crowdscout.com the other day about how to be effective in fundraising, and a thing that some folks at a recent event we did kept driving home, who are fundraising experts, is really communicating to people the value of the gift, especially on the political side. But it's great to hear that resonates across the board with people trying to raise money. That's interesting. So as we wrap this up, I think a great way to sort of a great way to send off would be, I'd love to hear from you guys, Anna, Lindsay, and David, about kind of, as you think about the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and think about your operation, what are kind of some of your goals as you think about what's the next step now that you're kind of well underway post-pilot? Where do you want to be, in some, you choose the increment of time in terms of your outreach operation to all of these unique audiences that you're outreaching to every day?
Yeah, I can start. So next year will be our final build out of the program Strive Together. So we will have Every single student will be eligible to participate because every grade level that we've built out a year at a time will be a part of the program. And so not only are we focused on making sure that our content and our goals are new and engaging for families, but we also, since we will have such a large base, we want to actually pop in some formal advocacy trainings and some additional ways that families can be trained by us and learn more about not only their students' education, but about the educational environment in Denver. And so we're going to be adding in not only 3 meetings per year for Strive Together, but we're going to have intermittent advocacy meetings between each one where parents can continue to learn and grow with us.